What is this effort going to cost American taxpayers? What does victory in Libya actually look like? Now, we were obviously quick to get in, but could anyone at the White House or on the Hill explain exactly how, and more importantly, when we're going to get out? Now, my next guest called this assault grave and says that it lacks constitutional authority. U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich is a Democrat representing the state of Ohio. Welcome so much back to the program, Dennis Kucinich.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I want to start with something that then candidate Obama said back when he was running for office in 2007. He said that the president does not have the power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual or imminent threat to this nation. Now, fast forward to March 2011, we went to this war essentially by presidential decree, almost no public debate, hardly any conversations with lawmakers or the people. Is this war legal?
It lacks constitutional authority. The president has no constitutional basis for the order that he gave, sending armed forces into combat over Tripoli.
So if it lacks constitutional authority, should there not be consequences for this?
Well, there are consequences practically, and those consequences are political. Whether Congress wants to cause the president to submit to a process for those consequences is unlikely. But I will say this, though, that we are in a fourth war here, fourth front, because you have to count Pakistan, plus Iraq and Afghanistan. When do these wars end? The United States does not have unlimited power here. We have to be very careful about making it appear that we're looking for opportunities to strike inside Muslim nations. We should be trying to find a way to effect a rapprochement with the Muslim community worldwide, which means getting out of Afghanistan, out of Iraq, out of away from the incursions in Pakistan. That doesn't mean ceding to terrorism. It means you work with the world community on a police action to deal with terrorism. You don't drop bombs, which kill a lot of innocent people.
But the argument that these folks who support this invasion say, well, hey, we have UN approval here. It's a global fight.
Okay. It's good that the UN is involved in security matters, except for one thing. When it comes to the United States, we have a prior process that trumps the UN, and that's called our Constitution, which requires that presidents have to get congressional approval to take our country into war. If the president feels there's an imminent or actual threat to the United States, he can move forward. This threat is to citizens in Libya. That's regrettable. But last I checked, Libya isn't one of our states.
Are you prepared to initiate impeachment procedures?
Well, remember, you know, it's one thing to say that this action's outside the Constitution and raise the question of whether or not such action is or constitutes an impeachable offense. It's another thing to begin the process, which is very chaotic for a nation. But in a sense, we need to begin to describe the limitations on the power of the presidency to stop further abuse of power. And at some point, the United States is going to the Congress is going to have to move to cut off funds for any action in Libya.
At which point it might, of course, be too late. Now, I have to ask, I mean, you have all of these folks from the left actually saying that this is a just cause, that, you know, we're intervening to prevent some sort of humanitarian crisis. How do you respond to those arguments that this is somehow just, whereas, I don't know, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, other conflicts on the ground?
Yemen, Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, look, humanitarian war is an oxymoron that needs a little bit more exploring. Bombing villages to save villages, we've been through that in Vietnam. There's a point at which we have to realize that the process of political change, as difficult as it may be in various countries, has to be done by the people within those countries. Now look at Egypt. We didn't intervene in Egypt. Had we intervened in Egypt, maybe the government would not have been overthrown. Had we intervened in Tunisia, maybe the government would not have been overthrown. We let the people of those countries take control of the process, and they did so in essentially a nonviolent manner. But what's happening here is this intervention could end up strengthening Gaddafi's hand, and it could actually end up emboldening al-Qaeda.
Well, not to mention the fact that we don't really know who the rebels are. It's not like there's some sort of concrete coalition of groups, right?
There is
what
that.
If the result is a hardline Islamist government? Then what?
That's a concern we ought to have. And when you have military leaders saying they don't know what the end game is, that should send a a note of concern through everybody in this country.
What makes you think, if anything, that we would be able to get out of this Libyan conflict without getting
You could look
bogged
at a
down?
war as a swamp. One step in a swamp, you get sucked in. There is no limited intervention. 100 Tomahawk missiles, not limited. 124 sites hit, not limited. 82,000-pound bombs, according to one general, to be or have been dropped, not limited. This is a massive intervention already in the name of a no-fly zone, which isn't like telling people you just can't park in this space. It's really a massive attack on the defense structure of a nation. We're in a war, and it has to be recognized as such. And it was without the approval of the United States Congress.
So is this president sinking this country in a swamp?
Is
This president sinking the United States in a swamp?
he's taken us in a direction with this that is very dangerous, and he should be taking us out of Afghanistan. He's taken us deeper into Afghanistan. He should have taken us out of Iraq. He's keeping troops there for whatever period of time. He shouldn't be incurring into Pakistan. He has, and now we're in Libya. It's not what people expected.
Now, Congressman, we talk so often about the financial situation that this country is in right now. If you listen to the Republican governors of certain states, we're so broke, in fact, that we have to bust unions. If you look at some of the bills that the body that you're a member of have passed, home heating assistance is apparently not something that we can afford. Where do we find money for this war?
Half of discretionary spending right now goes for the Pentagon. $3 trillion will be the cost of the war in Iraq. We're already up to half a trillion dollars in Afghanistan. The cost of this war for 1 week will be about that's $500 billion in Afghanistan, and $500 million this war in Libya will cost for 1 week. The money is coming. We're either borrowing it or we're cutting domestic priorities. We're telling people they can't have jobs programs, but they get war. They can't, you can't have health care for everyone in America, but we get war. You can't have education for all, but you get war. You can't save people's homes, but you're going to have war. So I think we have to start changing our priorities. Maybe we should focus on jobs and housing and education and health care and retirement security and come home and start taking care of things here at home instead of telling people around the world that we have the solution to their problems. We will bring democracy to them, or we will protect them as they strive for democracy. I think that's beyond our capability, frankly. And what is within our reach is taking care of things here at home, and maybe we should start to focus here at home.
And Congressman, with all due respect, I mean, you've been saying a similar kind of message for quite some time, from Iraq to Afghanistan to today. Do you have any sense that you are not a lone voice on the Hill for this?
I don't think I'm a lone voice, but I'm probably a more vocal voice because I come from Cleveland, Ohio, a community that's been wrecked by a double-dip recession where we've seen industries lost and people are just struggling to survive. And we look at these wars as being just a useless adventure on a part of a nation that's losing its way. And we have to call America home and start taking care of things. We can't be roaming the world looking for dragons to slay. It's about time we started to come home.